Well, I'm back down here again at 𝗪𝗻𝗄𝗃 pools. Camera 1, camera 2, and interviewee in the seat in front of me. Now I've got some blind questions for Curly, but they're actually for you. So they do say for Curly, but it's for me to read out. Unopened, so none of us even know, well, none of us here know what's in here. So should we just get cracking?
Go for it. Oh, it's exciting, Curly. What's in the envelope?
Oh, it's a bill. Is this the right envelope?
Yes, that's all the food you've eaten.
So this question is from Colin. With well over 3,000 team members and 15,000 followers on social media, what are your plans to use this in a positive show of commitment to further promote the welfare of our precious waterways and all the life it contains? As important, what can we do as individuals?
Very good question. I think we should all be very, very concerned about the health of the planet, full stop, very much including our waterways. I'm obviously a fishery owner. I started Pallatrax off the back of a fish kill. I'd caused and created problems with the last fishery, especially with water quality. And I suppose my situation was always to drive forward. You know, I'm somewhat of a pariah, I suppose, to the industry by totally focusing on water quality excuse me, and fish safety, but at the same time the enjoyment of this sport. Colin's there obviously talking about Team Pallatrax, well over 3,000 members, and people have gravitated to Team Pallatrax from literally all over, you know, recently Slovakia, Germany, Canada, South Africa, because we're all of the same mindset. We're very, very aware of the environment, but also we love our sport and we want to get more people into sport, more juniors. I mean, that's shocking at the moment, the lack of juniors come into it. More women, more disabled anglers, more people fishing and enjoying this, you know, fantastic. You know, we've been out here, we've seen deer, we've seen kites, we've seen owls, all these kind of things that people don't see. So what can people do individually? I mean, obviously we've got a lot of traction. We're certainly questioning things like the toxicity of lead. I mean, that's growing because there's a genuine concern by us as anglers. The evidence is out there that lead is a toxin. The ECHA report has stated it is. The facts are there, but the industry is in denial. You know, even now it's now getting banned all across Europe and in America and elsewhere. Why aren't we doing something about it? It's being banned for specific reasons. Nothing to do with me, nothing to do with Pallatrax. But I think we should stand up and be counted to protect our waterways. The same with this, don't get me wrong, there's some really, really good bait companies out there, but there's also some really, really bad ones. And we're fishing on things that, because we don't question ingredients, we don't know what the impact is. We know, let's just take carp for example, they will pick up anything, a bit of plastic, won't they? You know, they inhale, doesn't mean they eat. So we need to question the bait. We need to make sure everybody's animal feed regulated, which all bait companies should be. We question, and not just myself, there's loads of us within Team Pallatrax and outside are questioning, well, why aren't these companies animal feed registered? Because that's a regulation, that's legislation. So as a community in general, we are very passionate about our sport. We're passionate about the friendship it brings, but we're also very passionate about the environment we fish within. It's very delicate. You know, you drop a lump of lead into the substrate and people say, oh, it's disappeared into the mud. No, yeah, from us, we might not be able to see it, but you think of all the thousands of invertebrates that are born within this really, really delicate environment, and you've now got thousands and thousands of tons across Europe, all lead, have all sat in the substrate. So I think we need to stand up as anglers, we need to question why certain things aren't happening, and we can do that as a growing group. We've got more voice and people are enjoying it. People are now joining us because it's obvious over the time. There is no hidden agenda. We're true, all of us within the team and many of us outside of the team, we're passionate about our sport for all the right reasons.
Next up is a question from Sue, which I'm assuming is the Sue behind me. What are your thoughts on the quality of bait used in angling? Years ago, it seemed to remember reading in a feature in Angling Times saying we are killing fish with the bait we're feeding them. What are your thoughts on that? And it seems to be a bit overlooked. I think you kind of touched upon that, but is there any more you can add?
That's an interesting one. It was reported in the Angling Times, I think it was in 2008. Basically, it was a big feature done where a fishery scientist in the UK and a fishery scientist in Germany, they collaborated and had 5 basic tanks. Each had 90, I think it was 90 carp in C2, so 2-year class, 2-year-old fish, and they were fed on different things to see the reaction, and they were fed on boilies, nothing else, no other food. So one tank was fed on boilies, one on trout pellet, one on carp pellet, one on naturals, and one on pulses like sweet corn and things. And it was then what happened to the fish after a set period of time. All fully monitored, you know, done for the right reasons, but it actually went down like a lead balloon, because what it proved at the end of the day was that the fish were eating all of these things, and trout pellet was the thing that gave the most weight gain, but that's not a healthy weight gain. Carp pellet was the next weight gain, but it was healthy weight gain. Then it was naturals, then it was pulses. So what do you think happened to the carp that were eating all these basically boilies, whether they're shelf life, frozen, whatever? What do you think happened to the fish in that tank?
Well, I'm assuming as the article didn't go down well, it wasn't good news for them.
No, 85 of them died. What do you think they died of?
Malnutrition?
Starvation. They're eating something, but there's no food value to it. But what was even more disturbing, or as disturbing, was when they autopsied, they found that certain ingredients within these baits basically impacted on their organs. So it's really, again, I stress all the time, I get, you know, poo-pooed a lot of time when I'm saying it's all about the ingredients. You know, if you feed carp something, it should be regulated for carp. This is about, we talk fish safety, unhooking mats, yada yada, but if you drill down to what really makes and keeps fish safe is their water quality. So if they're eating something that is physically then impacting them physically, and also impacting the air they breathe, the water, that's really not a good thing. So when you see these reports and you wonder why people like the EA or the Angling Trust or DEFRA aren't going, hang on a second, or DEFRA have, they've come out and said all bait companies should be animal feed regulated. As I said earlier, you know, they're not. Why aren't they not? And I think we as anglers need to stand up now and say, hang on a second, you know, we're destroying the world anyhow, but why are we doing things within angling that actually make no sense whatsoever and are causing the problems we're seeing?
This next question is from an anonymous person. It says, regarding the unique rules at your fishery, by insisting you have to use Pallatrax baits, the grips, design hooks and stones, isn't that unfair, and are you just doing it to encourage sales? It certainly looks to be that way. You talk about water quality a lot, but why don't other fisheries do the same?
Yeah, 2 questions there, I suppose. I started Pallatrax after a fish kill. It was purely done as a fishery management tool for my fishery at that time. Nothing else. And so my mission was to find best quality for the angler, best quality for the fish, for the general biomass, for the environment, everything. And that's what it was meant to do at my fishery. And then obviously the results started getting out. You know, I'm using a stone as it's non-toxic, but that's not the reason I was using a stone. It was because it was an angling advantage. It's man-made versus natural, and natural will always come out tops in nature. Then I developed a whole range of baits using, again, fish farming and all that kind of research, not just taking something, I don't think the internet existed when I started doing bait, but actually going to the people who knew their stuff. So it was all about creating a fishery management tool for me at my fishery, where people could come in, they could use really high quality product that was definitely puts performance over profit. So they were enjoying the experience. The fish were getting healthier and fatter, and the water quality was on top level. And that was by, I suppose, ignoring the trade, because they were saying, oh, it's okay to feed halibut pellet, and it's like, is it? Is it really? Then you research it and it's got a massive oil content. Yes, fish will eat it because it's got that high oil content, but it's designed for sea fish. You know, you don't feed pigs chicken feed, for example. You could, and they'd probably eat it, but it doesn't mean it should be done. So it was never done for, you know, and to be quite honest, you've been here a number of times, Curly, and, you know, when people come here, we give them a free package. We're just encouraging fishing down here. This will never make a profit. It's not about that. I want to go forward. The 𝗃𝗶𝗺𝗃𝗊𝗲𝗄, we want to start doing lessons for children or disabled, or whoever wants to come into the sport. This is not a money-making scheme, and I can understand people being cynical because we live in a world where profit is all and everything. This is not about that, and like I say, I understand people, a lot of people have levelled at me, but what you've got to be very careful is when you're making an assumption, you could really be wrong, and all I can say is genuinely people are wrong. They don't know me. If they want to phone up, want to question, I'm more than happy to tell people. You look here, we've got the diffusers running all the time, we've got all the kind of facilities, and we're not charging a great deal of money. We're just looking to hope, and we feed the fish, we do loads of different things. So as long as it wipes its nose, it's a beautiful place to people to come to who understand there is no hidden agenda. They understand the reason we're doing it. And why don't other people do it in the industry? I think you're seeing a definite wind of change. Definite wind of change. People are now, I think probably the internet, groups like Pallatrax and other entities out across the world, they're literally saying we need to question some of this stuff. It's always been a strange one for me, because my fish kill was, 25 years ago, and I've banged away for years saying we really need to be looking after water quality. That's fish safety. That's the highest thing, is water quality. And so if we're doing things that are impacting negatively on the water quality, not only are we harming the fish and the future of the fishery, but we're also harming all of the different things that live within the biomass. Why aren't other people doing it? I think probably because the likes of the Angling Trust and the Environment Agency aren't actually, or don't seem to be. I've tried to approach these bodies, they don't seem to be really interested, or if they are, they certainly haven't shown it towards me. It's like, I speak to a lot of fisheries, more now, literally all over the world, whether it's top cats in Thailand or, 𝗃𝗶𝗵𝗿 in France, it goes on and on now. The fisheries, the 𝗃𝗶𝗵𝗿 over here, advanced angling over here. And the thing that really kind of sums it up, I suppose, in a few short words is, I'll speak to fishery owners and they say, oh, we've banned shelf-life baits. And I go, okay, fine. That's obviously their prerogative. And all of this is their prerogative. I can only draw people to the conclusions I've made, but they're all fact-based. I'm not interested in making assumptions. And then they'll say, yeah, but we allow frozen baits. And it's like, well, so what? Because a bait is cold, that's the deciding factor that is good quality. And that kind of percolates around the industry. Well, what about if it's a cheap shelf life made out of nasty ingredients that cause a negative impact, and then it's just frozen? Do you see what I mean? It's like, it doesn't make any sense. Just because it's cold, the assumption is it's good. Just because it's called bait, the assumption is it's food. Well, if it's not food, it isn't food. It's like, people say to me frequently, because I love fishing the method mix, as you well know, but it's all about the ingredients. People like to fish a PVA bag, well, that's a tactic. It's what's in the bag is the actual ingredients that counts. And so many people have said to me, a lot of people say it's a kind of noddy tactic, and it's like, well, not if your ingredients are right away up there. But when they say, oh, I've tried it before, it never worked. And I go, well, what do you mean you tried it before? And they go, yeah, I fished the method and it doesn't work. I said, well, the method's just a name of something. It's not the ingredients. It's what your method is made of will have a different, whether a positive or negative fact. So I think more and more people now are starting to realise, we're seeing a lot of water quality problems, and you can't just blame every water authority for their pathetic performances. You've got to look at what goes in your water will impact. If it's man-made, it goes into your water, you need to be questioning, is it good or is it bad? And I want it to be good, because then the angler's happy, I'm happy, and nature's happy. And I don't think that's a bad thing to do. I think the industry needs to, some parts of the industry, not all as I said, does need to look at itself. And why is it saying you've got to dump lead and then you've got to go buy them back and buy another one? I mean, am I cynical? Am I just a grumpy old man? I don't think so. Been doing this for a quarter of a century now, and the environment doesn't seem to hold where I believe it should be.
And the next question is up from Galen, and he says, what is your favourite part of having your own fishery?
Nature. And what we've done, you know, if you look around, and we're only 2 years now into the finished product and moving forward, you know, the trees are, it's, you know, people say it must be because of the fishing. It's not at all, to be fair. I'd rather people were here catching the fish. It's like when Sue a week ago, she had a 31-14 from here. It was a new fish going into the 30s, and the enjoyment she had, I was more, probably the enjoyment for me was seeing Sue so happy, but also this beautiful fish coming through. I love just sitting down here. I don't, you know, of course I like fishing, but it doesn't bother me if I'm not fishing. You just sit down here, like at night, you've got the fire pit going, you just watch the stars. It's just beautiful. And I love, I know it sounds a bit strange, but I love the maintenance. I like making things happen, making things grow. You know, looking a year later and that thing you planted, which is just a tiny seed, has now blossomed into something. But also, well, you can hear it now, I just love being in nature. I mean, and that's what it's all about for me, having this beautiful place for me, my family, for friends and people who want to engage with what we're doing.
This next question is from Rich, and this is one I think we're going to expand upon in a future video, but just briefly touch upon what is a Pallatrax associated fishery scheme.
Yes, we will. We'll go into a lot more detail because it's actually quite a complex initiative I've set up. But in a nutshell, it's about how we, Pallatrax, and I'd like to think more people in the trade will engage with the fisheries. I think there's like the dovetail doesn't really fit. We need to be doing things that support fisheries. Fishery needs to rely on us that we're doing good things. So the Pallatrax Associated Fishery is an initiative. It's no hidden agenda. It's free of charge. It's where we, and like I say, let's just use Top Cats as a great example. We work together. I showed Simon, the owner out there, how to make good base mixes, good baits. Introduced him to products like 𝗃𝗃, and we have great cross-pollination of marketing. We make friends. We take the team to the associated fisheries to do films and fish-ins and things like that. But ultimately, all I'm doing is saying to fisheries, this is why I ended up doing what I'm doing, and if you engage with it, the same thing will happen. And those that have engaged with it have really reaped the benefits. And like I said, I think ultimately it comes down to a moral duty that I need to, I suppose the best thing is when I had that fish kill, which to this day still impacts on me, because obviously I was doing things wrong. I wasn't protecting my water quality. We were chucking in all kinds of stuff, loads and loads of trout pellet. I thought trout is a fish, so it must be, didn't realise a trout didn't have a digestive tract like a carp, it has a stomach. So a totally different creature. So when I had the fish kill, I was only in fishery management ownership for about 16 months, I think it was. We lost, I think it was about, what we know was 180 carp, and it was devastating. And ultimately, I can only take responsibility. I was doing things, they were naive, but at the end of the day, that's ignorance is no defence. So I phoned around a few people I knew, didn't know many, and the same answer was coming back to me from a couple of different places, was just dig a whole pond, bury them and don't tell anybody, because people won't come to your fishery because your fish had died. And it's like, well, that doesn't help me, it doesn't help my fishery going forward. And that was the last thing that even featured. That was just fundamentally flawed. And what I did, I went to EA, I went to CFAS, I went to everybody I could to try and discover what the problem was, so it never happened again, and so it could impart that and go through and tell other people. But yeah, we'll do a whole separate thing, because it's a really, you know, it's an initiative I'm really proud of. We're the only company, as far as I know, that does it, and we support each other, and yeah, I've made a lot of friends through it, but at the same time we're all working together to make sure that we're not impacting nature.
Now this next question comes from Beanie, and it's a bit different to the one that Colin said at the start. He said, what can we do more as individuals? Because this one seems to be a bit more things we may be forced to do, and do you think this is a good idea? So she says, or he, sorry, Beanie says, do you believe in basic understanding of fish safety and importance of water quality, and HMV baits should be issued and understood alongside a rod licence fishing application? So like you have to go through some kind of process to be able to fish.
I think there's an argument for it. Fishing in the old days, you know, when I was a kid, it's now changed fundamentally, you know, on so many different levels. And you're now dealing with, you know, like when I was a kid, you know, if somebody caught a 10-pound barbel, most people weren't carp fishing, obviously it hadn't kind of emerged. And it was a huge shout, you know, it was all across the Angling Times, Angler's Mail, things like that. It's changed massively. Now we're getting fish in this country, you know, what I mean, I can't remember what the British record is, but it's 70 pounds or something like that carp. You know, you need to have, I mean, not just for the concern for the safety of the fish, but also it's worth an awful lot of money on lots of different levels. If you've got a big fish in your fishery and it dies, that's a negative impact on all and everything. So there is an argument for it. There's a lot of people talking about it. I think it needs to be looked into, you know, done for all the right reasons. And I think that's what 𝗵𝗍 is saying. It's probably coming from the heart. Because like I say, things have changed. And if we don't move with the changes, then we're still doing stuff we did 30 or 40 years ago for basically a totally different way of fishing. So, and I don't like to say it, but it's the truth. I've seen anglers who, you know, I say, I don't want to be nasty, but ignorance can never be a defence. But some of the practices I've seen, some of the rigs I've seen, you know, the dropping of lead, you know, people think is a good idea because company X has said that's a good idea. And so they're following the trade. Trade's obviously very, very focused on profit. Nothing wrong with that, you know, as long as it's legitimate profit. So, yeah, possibly we should have to, I don't want to, you know, I hated exams when I was a kid, and I won't want to labour the point, but I think we do need somebody in authority giving guidance. We haven't got that. You know, people can say, well, the EA, you know, in a situation like most government departments, and then you've got places like the Angling Trust, that's a private company. So you need that independence, and where it will come from, I don't know, unless it came from within angling. But then you look at the associations within angling, they're like dogs with no bark, you know. So it is a bit of a muddle, and I'm not making this up. I've been doing it for a long time, and it would be good at some stage for somebody, something, somehow to really revisit where we are in fishing now and make sure everybody's brought up to speed. You know, it's like just because you can go and buy an aeroplane doesn't mean you can fly it. And that's the way I look at things. So, you know, somebody's bought a load of tackle, they've gone to tackle shop, want to start fishing, they bought all this stuff, and then they come fishing and they've watched stuff on YouTube and assume it's right. Don't catch, might drop a fish, might lose a fish in a snag, all the kind of things that we as fishery owners, and I'm sure a lot of anglers are concerned about. You know, and so unless they're told and taught, when I was a kid we were told by basically the seniors in the angling clubs and things like that. So yeah, I think, you know, would I be pro it? It's a yes and no thing, because I hate exams, and I'm not suggesting there should be, but there should be perhaps some, even if there's some portal where you get a license, prior to actually getting a license you have to go and view a film, and there's an hour film that you sit there and watch, and it highlights all of the main factors that we need to take on board within modern fishing. We need to do something. We can't just let it flap around like it is, as they say, kick the bucket down the road, because it's nature. We need to be looking after it. And if you don't know how to look after it, how are you not going to look after it?
So next up is a question from Tim. I know you only use a couple of rigs in your carp angling, yet many anglers have a multitude. Can you tell me why?
Oh, that's a low baller in some ways, but a very good question. I've got an angling background where I've been very, very fortunate. I've had boats in Bermuda and back here. I've fly fished to quite a high level. I've match fished very badly, and all the kind of things I've done in the last 25 years. Obviously, I've been really involved in the coarse fishing industry, both here and abroad. Why do I only fish 2 rigs? Well, what I would say is the strange thing about carp fishing, or hair rig fishing, or whatever you want to call it, is it is totally the opposite in so many areas of like application of the art of angling than everything. So it's like, it's obtrusive terminal tackle, and the industry saying, oh, we painted it green, the fish can't see it. They're not clarifying about what a fish senses and all the different things that go on there. So it's actually a flawed statement. So when you get to rigs, and I've owned 2 tackle shops as well, so and I'm not telling tales because lots of people agree with me because we're in the same position, but the rig market, it's I don't know, I don't want to say it's become a joke, but it has really. You know, every week there's the holy grail of rigs. The hair rig was basically designed as it was, and people are now trying to reinvent the wheel. You know, the next new thing comes out, but you've got to buy £100 worth of compartments to make it. So I fish very much like the match angler. I fish 2 rigs, my LQ Steam Link rig with the grips design hooks, and that's for fish safety and efficiency. I have yet to be able to beat it, in all honesty, because I'm looking at about reset, I'm looking about anti-tangle, I'm looking at presentation, looking for everything from a rig, and I can use it as a pop-up and a bottom bait, and then I have one I call the weed rig that, you know, basically I fish horseshoe a lot. I love the horseshoe carp salty water, and it can be weedy. Don't get me wrong, I don't fish into thick weed, that's dangerous for the fish, but I kind of have it's very much a match style where you're pushing your rig back into the method ball and then you can fish it into the weeds. So, and on a pop-up, it's a pop-up rig. But outside of that, you know, what you end up doing is confusing yourself. And it's funny because it's been so long since I had a fishery, and I've got people coming down here, and obviously we have to ask to see their rigs to make sure they're on grips, from the fish safety aspect, and they're all different. And so let's just say, well, you know, I don't want to sound ignorant or arrogant here, but I actually don't know what a Ronnie rig is, okay? For my own personal reasons. But what I have seen is what one person's Ronnie rig is a totally different interpretation of another. So the inconsistency in carping is one of the reasons people don't, if you don't have good bait, if you don't prep, if you don't have a rig that, you know, you've got to think a rig is actually a trap. The fish are hooking themselves. So if your trap is poor for some reason, you know, it's been poorly designed or poorly tied or, you know, whatever, you're going to get poor results. Consistency is all about having everything consistent. And so if you have rigs that are proved, I mean, time and time again over the years, people have said, oh, I've had fish in my swim pond, you know, can't get them, so I changed over to this rig. And I'm thinking, why didn't you change bait? Because that's when I've done direct fishing, every area of fishing, you don't change your rig, you're using proven rigs, because as soon as you go away from using a proven rig, you end up in, where do you end up? And then, like I say, because there's so many interpretations. So the LQ rig, for example, it uses Steam Link. It's 5.5 inches long. It's got a reset boom. It's as unobtrusive as possible. It's got a Dyneema inner core, so I don't need any kind of jingly jangly bits. I don't need swivels and bits and pieces to rotate and things. And it's caught me literally thousands and thousands of fish of all different kinds of species. And I hate any ego or arrogance. I fish, and I've fished for a long time. You know, for 9 years, to be honest, at Paddington, that's all I did. So it gave me a lot of time to develop things. If I thought there was better rigs out there, I'd be the first to say, this is a better rig. It's never happened. And one of the reasons is because of that inconsistency. So like I say, if somebody's fishing a Ronnie rig and they've tied it this way, and then somebody else is fishing a Ronnie rig and it's totally different, well, it has to be the it has to be the replication of whoever developed the first ever Ronnie rig. You know, as soon as you start changing, it's no longer the Ronnie rig, it's something else. And it is an area of confusion, an area I see, unfortunately, that really costs people a lot of fish, because they're moving away from the proven, and instead of saying, oh, loads of fish in the swim, I need to change depth, I need to fish on the surface, I need to look at another bait, all these kind of things, it's, no, change your rig. And it's like, well, why doesn't the match angler? I think the match angler is really, you know, I follow the match scene, I have done for years. they're people that put themselves out there, not just because they've caught a big fish or they're in magazines or whatever. Or these people put themselves out week in, week out to catch more fish than the people around them, more, bigger weight, etc. And so if you watch how they prep everything, and all their, you know, how they feed their maggots, how they, you know, bite detection, all of these things they're doing, they don't change their rigs every 5 minutes. They have different rods for different applications. So, you know, if there's something going to go onto a feeder or a bomb, they'll go there for that rod, or the pole over there, you know, the tip over there. They don't change rigs. Their rigs are very, very simple, but what they have got is that acute bite detection that we don't have with hair rig fishing, because we're asking a fish, you know, I call it like a trap, you know, we're asking them to trap. So that's why I can't beat those rigs. They've caught so many fish, and then obviously other people have then gravitated to them. I mean, my commitment to it, I suppose, because I was so disappointed that so many people, it's something I do for the team under the team exclusive, because the team has an exclusive access to various. I actually hand tie every LQ rig for team members because they're spot on. And unfortunately, some people can't tie rigs. You know, they might have disabled hands or bad eyesight, or, you know, it's just not their thing. And yeah, so a few thousand rigs later, the nice thing is I know these rigs are going out because it's coming back to me, because they're then replicating the rig, because it's the same rig I'm fishing on, and they're benefiting and they're catching, you know, incredible fish. I sent a rig to somebody in Thailand a couple of weeks ago. First fish, it was on a new hook design I'm working on at the moment, new hook link material, 300 pound 𝗲𝗔𝗵𝗿, the biggest fish in the lake, and I actually get a real buzz from that. You know, not taking anything away from him, it's all, but that rig has done the business. And so yeah, I think we need to be very careful. We need to look into rigs, we need to look into the design, where it all comes from, who did it, how many fish did it catch. So it's about consistency.
Next up is a question from Dan. He says he's a member of the team Pallatrax, which is a fantastic and friendly place, but can I ask what made you start it and what are you hoping to achieve? Where do you see it going in the future?
Yeah, good question, Dan. It's driven purely by passion, and not just myself. There's a whole group next to me. We ride together, kind of thing. There's not a rank structure. I have to kind of steer the ship, I suppose. And in reality, what happens is Pallatrax sponsors Team Pallatrax. You know, there's loads of competitions and things going on all the time. Why did I start it? When I was a kid, I used to fish in Repton, and we, in those days, we had these communities. Like, this was the Mount Pleasant, and everybody shared, they fished together, they did this, they did that, and I was just watching, not from afar, very close up, and especially the way fishing has progressed now. You know, people are in a tent, they stay within the confines of that, they're not actually getting out there meeting and learning and socialising and doing things together. And that's really what it's about, is making fishing that friendship again, you know. And I'm really proud of what it's achieved, not on a personal level, because there's so many other people inputting into it, but people are now going on fishing holidays together. They fished, you know, people are picking other people up who can't drive. They're all learning together, and I just think it's a great initiative, and I'm happy and proud to support it in all the ways we do. You know, we've just come back from a fishing in 𝗃𝗏. We've got fishing at 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏, same in Thailand. We have fishings here, and again, what happens is we get people together, and because we've all got that common bond, our love of fishing, everybody gets on well. And then everybody, because we're a safe place as well. I hate these trolls, or what they are. I'm old, I can only just turn the phone on, but these people on the internet that are just obviously idiots or nasty individuals. So if somebody's new to fishing and they put up a post, and let's just say, for example, they haven't got an unhooking mat, okay, at the end of the day, a lot of fisheries don't even require you. When we were kids, we never had unhooking mats. I believe we should have unhooking mats and treat them properly. But you know, the hate, it's like, you know, that gets, this poor person, he's put up this fish, it's probably the biggest fish he's ever seen, and everybody, well, not everybody, but this proportion of people come out the woodwork and go, ah, and it's like, well, I won't stand for any of that. Anything when you join Team Pallatrax, you submit an application. We obviously have to take everybody on face value. Every now and again, one of these trolly things gets through the gates, and we quickly ask them to close the door quietly on their way out, because it's wrong that they're being nasty to people who are at the beginning. They must have started fishing somewhere, and then actually a lot of times you research them and find out who they are, and they don't fish, to be quite honest. They just seem to be sitting there typing away. So it's a safe environment with loads of initiatives, loads of exclusives, and it's just growing all the time. I just put another 26 people on the team. I mean, it's really gained traction. And what I think is really nice for me, because I read every application, is the amount of people that are joining having been recommended by other people on the team already. And I think word of mouth is just a strong thing. We don't massively advertise it, we obviously talk about it. So it's a thing that was done for all the right reasons. Again, no hidden agenda, nothing like that. Obviously I'd be lying if I didn't say it didn't help spread the Pallatrax word, and that's just by default. I can't help that. People start fishing on stones and catch a load of fish, fantastic. So yeah, it's just a nice friendly initiative. How big it will get, I don't know, because I thought if we could get a couple of hundred at the beginning, and now we're ways past 3,000 and gaining more traction. So yeah, I don't know. World domination, I suppose.
Matthew Lee now asks, beyond the move to unleaded and the use of H&V baits, etc. from companies like yourselves, what else can the average angler on the bank do to try and advance and drive up the cleaning of our waterways, both privately or commercial and public rivers, parks, canals, and etc.?
Well, again, I think it should be, these kind of directives should be coming on from on high. It should be planned, it should be regulated, it should have any plan that's realistic you can achieve. But the trouble is, I'd like to think a minority proportion that, ruin it for everybody else by leaving rubbish or going to the toilet in bushes, or, all the kind of nasty things we do see. What I found at my last lakes is, this is slightly different here, but I got everybody together, and all the bailiffs said, look, what do we want to do? What do we want to achieve here, folks? We want to have a fantastic place which is friendly, the fish are growing and happy, you're happy because you're catching big fish. And so once you get people on board, and there's no hidden agenda, but the trouble is at the moment, because we're so fragmented within the industry, nobody's leading anybody, everybody's just doing what they want. It's quite a distressing place to be. And I don't think there's many areas within business that is so unregulated, where we're doing things in the fishing industry which you'd never do in other industries. So what can people do? I mean, look at me over lead. I've had meetings with my MP. I was consultant for the 𝗃𝗏 report. I've gone out there. I was consultant for a report in Belgium about the impact of lead on mollusks, and all the things and I put myself out there, and I've been shot down. I've got big shoulders, I don't mind. If people want to make those assumptions and say, there's not a problem, well, there's a right or a wrong to any statement. And if they're fundamentally wrong, I mean, I'm going to tell them. That's it. Because if you're telling other people you can do something flawed, well, that is wrong on all kinds of levels. And I say, when it comes to nature, it's such a delicate balance. It's such a delicate balance.
Finally, I just heard you talk about the 𝗃𝗏 report. I've heard you talk about the 𝗃𝗏 report. Can you tell me what it is? And that's from Renee.
The 𝗃𝗏 report is the European Chemical Agency in Helsinki. It's basically an initiative, a body of scientists. There's a thing called the poisons list, the World Health Organization. All these kind of bodies collude to try and reduce poisons within the environment, in work practices, anywhere, especially around children. And I was actually approached by default because the stones are non-toxic. I produced the stones because I didn't realise I used to make my own leads for my boat fishing things. I didn't realise it was so bad. And so the Echo report were basically about 3 or 4 years ago now. They were pushed by, not pushed, they were commissioned by the European Union, Brussels, to actually now look at lead, because the World Health Organization was talking about lead, all these things. And the trouble is the industry just turns around and says, well, it doesn't dissolve in water, and the Echo report's got nothing to do with that. I've never said it. You know, the only time lead will dissolve in water, and only minutely, is in the higher acid water. So I got involved, and they were telling me things that I'd never ever realised. They were saying one of the main reasons we want lead out of fishing and shooting is home smelting, because if children get in contact, so you know, through the dust and the fumes and things like that, not only can it potentially kill them, once you've ingested lead poisoning, you can never get rid of it. So then there's birth defects, there's brain disease, all these things that you can potentially get, and it's got nothing to do with fishing. It's just literally, look, it's a product, is it good or bad? And these are the areas it's been used in. Look at America. You go to America, you can still buy lead in some states. And it literally comes with like a cigarette packet warning saying, beware, wash hands after use, this, you know, birth defects, brain disease, cancers. This is like all across America. So the Echo report was all about looking at lead in fishing across the board. It could be lead paint, it could be lead weights, it could be whatever. And obviously it was damning. And one of the things I certainly questioned, and they actually couldn't believe it. They really, these are scientists, you know, and they could not believe that the industry was telling the angler to dump lead. They just couldn't. And I suppose again, for no reason other than personal thing, you know, when I sent them all, it's all on YouTube, isn't it? All these different ways to dump lead, and there's people tying 12 ounces of lead and boating out 24 ounces and dumping it over the side, and as soon as they reel in, it's dropped, there's another 24 ounces. And what we do know is the lead, when it gets to the substrate, can actually create what I call kill zones. So, because nothing lives on lead, okay, it either will kill it or it will displace it. So there's whole areas of fisheries, especially if you think where people turn up and go, oh, I'm going to fish on the Port of the Island, that looks the pot, you know, and then I turn up, oh, and we're all fishing there. And we dropped one lake in Devon actually a few years ago, and the hot spots, they were literally, we got buckets of leads. All the coatings that are meant to stay on, they were all peeling off and things like that. So the Echo report was put out to try and solve a problem that was impacting on all levels. So whether, you know, within the report, we're talking about 1 million birds across Europe every year and all these kind of things. So it was very, very complicated. And I say, I was proud that once because I suppose the trouble is, you see, because people say I'm a telltale, and it's like, I sit there and think, I know this, so what do I do? Keep it quiet, or do I have a moral obligation to come out and say, look folks, we shouldn't be doing this, and these are the reasons? But whenever I've spoken to bodies like the Angling Trust and things like that, they've just shut me down. You know, they don't want to talk about it. And I don't think that's right. I think that's fundamentally flawed, and loads more people are now, because it's getting promoted, the right reasons are being shown why lead should be banned. It's far deeper than what the trade is saying, which is it doesn't dissolve in water. Well, nobody says it does dissolve in water. You've just taken something, called it not a problem, and it's actually good because it's for fish safety. Well, that's a load of rubbish. You know, what, you drop lead for fish safety. Well, there is no fish safety element to it. That's just, again, they say in marketing, he who articulates owns. So somebody somewhere has said, oh, it's for fish safety, and everybody said, oh, it's for fish safety. They've never said, well, what fish safety? And obviously I like questioning, and there's nothing. There's nothing out there whatsoever. You know, it's all based on the assumption, oh, fish will swim around, the lead will get caught, and it's all kind of made up stuff. It's not fact. There's no proof. I have never ever, I've lost 2 stones since in the last 20, not physically unfortunately, but 2 physical stones that really hurt, because I get quite attached to my stones. But I've never dropped anything on purpose. I mean, I actually think it's a flaw from an angling point of view, because as soon as you eject the weight that's holding the hook in place, you're suddenly in a different dynamic. If you've got slack lines and a fish is shaking its head. But like I say, the 𝗃𝗏𝗺𝗃 is something very real that's gone across the whole of Europe. You've got like Catalonia have just banned lead. You've got Denmark. You've got Holland on a phase-out ban. This is happening not for any sad reason that, you know, and it's been I've been labelled, I'm doing this because I'm trying to sell more stones. And if people knew how much stones cost to produce and how much I sell them for, they're all handmade. It's nothing to do with that. I've got involved in this industry, found these problems, and I've said, oh, excuse me, should we really be doing that? And then I've just been shot down in flames. And I think now people, again, going back to Team Pallatrax, we all know the facts. We've all got access to the 𝗃𝗏𝗺𝗃 and all these other things, and we're going, this isn't right, this is wrong. And then if you've got that, I was talking to somebody recently, quite high up in another industry, and we were talking about this, and he genuinely couldn't believe that this was happening. He genuinely couldn't believe it was happening. But when he said to me, he said, your problem is, and it's now my problem, you've given me the 𝗃𝗏𝗺𝗃, you've given me all of this stuff that's gone on, and I know this now. Like, you know this, and I now can see what you're saying, why you have those sleepless nights. You know something's going on and you can't tell people, but I've got a moral obligation to, you know. So what do I say? There's not a problem with lead, then I'm lying. Or there is a problem with lead for all these different reasons, children's health and yada, 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 yada. The worm is turning. The industry's left itself very open, without a shadow of a doubt, and we don't need any critique in angling. You know, it's such a fantastic thing. So to do something so naive, so juvenile, from a made-up point of view, and getting people to believe it's the right reason. One well-known angling star, I can remember doing it on a podcast, and they were talking about this. He goes, it's not a problem, it's just minor littering. And I just thought, you know, this guy influences a lot of people. So that's like saying it's only minor murder. Doesn't make any sense. So 𝗃𝗏𝗺𝗃 is something very serious. It's been totally denied by the UK because we've obviously, with Brexit, we're no longer part of the European Union. And what I don't understand is manufacturers know this report and they're still making lead. I just think that's so wrong.
Well, thank you very much for your time. That was the last question. I'm sure there'll be many more on future trips, but for now I think that's everything.
Great, I love these because I genuinely don't know what the questions are, and so whatever I say is just off the hoof, but I'd like to think I'm learned in some of these. One thing I do know is I don't know it all, but there is areas that I do, and I like to have questions. If it means we're passing on true, genuine knowledge, that's not a bad thing.